Hi folks, so this is a combination weekly overview and full moon in Sagittarius video, and I really should have gotten this out yesterday, so I apologize that I'm sort of a day late from when I like to do my weekly overviews, but it's also, I'm combining it with the full moon in Sag video, so it kind of delivers it all. Now, the hot news this week on a certain level is this movement of the Sun and Venus into Gemini. But I would urge you to keep your focus on where we have been and what we have been focusing on so far, which is the signs of Aries, but especially Taurus. Now, I'm going to expand on that. It is a full moon week, so at least till Thursday, expect the energies to become unwieldy. Wherever the sign of Sagittarius sits in your chart, what house it occupies, and what that house stands for, expect issues or visibility or, it's sort of an exaggeration of an intensification of events, feelings, reactions in that part of the chart. And even though the moon is currently in Scorpio as I do this video, and it's going to remain in Scorpio, almost it's going to feel like, because the full moon in Sag is in the first couple of degrees of Sag. And then the next full moon in Capricorn will be in the very first degree of Capricorn. And then the next full moon in Capricorn again will be in the last degree of Capricorn. We're just getting to that point where the full moons, which are currently happening 2 weeks before their corresponding new moons, are going to switch over in June to the new moon happening first and the full moon, in July, to the new moon happening first and the full moon happening second. So in June, we're going to have a full moon in Capricorn, 28 days after the full moon in Sagittarius in a couple of days. And then in July, we're going to have the new moon in Cancer on July the 5th. And then 2 weeks later, we're going to have a full moon in Capricorn again, the corresponding full moon. So far we're having full moons 2 weeks before the corresponding new moons, and the full moon in Sag, yes, you're right, corresponds to the new moon in Gemini about 2 weeks and a few days from now, June the 6th. But still, I say, pay attention to what's going on in the signs of Taurus and Aries. And again, I'm going to expand on that. Now, the first thing as far as this week is concerned, so expect there to be an intensification of energies. As I've said to you, productivity increases as we head to a full moon, depending on where the full moon is. If you're going to have a full moon in the 4th house or the 12th house, then expect greater inactivity, almost to the point of inaction, around the time of the full moon. But for much of the rest of the chart, there's an intensification of energy. It's just that the energies are kind of unwieldy. So while we are productive, things are getting spilled over, certain things are getting done, certain things are not. There's rushing, there's franticness, there's just the energies are unwieldy. And then, as I've mentioned to you, after the full moon for about 7 days is the perfect balance of energies to be productive. So bear with, and even though the moon is in Scorpio, expect over the next couple of days and through Thursday, expect that even if the moon is in Scorpio, expect that there might be an event or something, because the full moon's energy more often than not is felt before or leading up to the full moon. Now, sometimes, so as I say, 48 to 72 hours before a full moon, and we're there, it's going to start to light, and it's heading in a certain direction, and that direction is the Sagittarius part of your chart, the house occupied by the sign of Sagittarius in your chart. So even today, even tomorrow, there could be something that occurs that even though the moon is in Scorpio and it's relatively full, it's practically full, it's actually related to the Sagittarius part of the chart, because the full moon itself, the event itself, is in the sign of Sagittarius. And it continues this theme of May being an expansive month. As far as the week itself is concerned, yesterday, Monday, the 20th of May, the sun moved into Gemini. As planets move into the sign of Gemini, they're going to trine Pluto in Aquarius. As the planets moved into Taurus, they squared Pluto in Aquarius. So the Sun trines Pluto tomorrow on the 22nd. On the 23rd, the day of the full moon, Venus conjuncts Jupiter in Taurus. Venus enters Gemini, and of course we have the full moon in Sagittarius. On the 25th, Venus, now in Gemini, trines Pluto, and on the 25th, Jupiter enters Gemini for 13 odd months. There's going to be a video on that by the end of this week. That is what this week is about. The Sun and Venus entering Gemini, the full moon in Sagittarius, the Sun and Venus as they enter Gemini, trining Pluto. But, my darlings, the reason why I am saying keep it a Taurus-focused week and expect it to remain a strangely Taurus-focused week is because of that Venus-Jupiter conjunction on the day of that full moon. And the full moon is in Sag. Sag is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is in Taurus still. Venus is conjuncting Jupiter on the day of that full moon. By the time the full moon occurs, Venus and Jupiter will be separating, but full moons are one of the few aspects where I consider things that are separating by that point in time. And Jupiter's in Taurus. Taurus is ruled by Venus. So the dispositor of the chart and the ruler of the full moon are meeting up on the way to the full moon in Sag. Is the full moon in Sag going to be in conversation with the new moon in Gemini on June the 6th? Yes. Are Venus and the Sun and Jupiter moving into the sign of Gemini this week? Yes. Do the Sun and Venus trine Pluto? Yes. But Venus, a lot of people say the Sun and Jupiter conjuncting is the luckiest day of the year. In my last video, the luckiest day, if you haven't, take a look at that, because this kind of luckiest day BS, we are not going to be, I'm not serving that up to you on this channel. But for a lot of people, it's Venus conjunct Jupiter. Now, let's take stock of where we are at today on May the 21st in the grand narrative of astrological events since last year. We had the first solar eclipse in Aries in April of last year. Since March to April of 2023, heading towards July, August, we may have had a sense of where we want to move to. Those of you who've been watching my videos know what I'm about to say for the next 2 or 3 minutes here, but bear with me. It's worth remembering and reminding of. Related to the Aries part of the chart, but also possibly the Taurus part of the chart, because by July, Jupiter had entered Taurus, this is of last year, and conjuncted the North Node. If you don't want to consider all these transits and aspects, by July of last year, August of last year, there may have been a direction that we felt called to move towards. But by September, October, till the middle of February of this year, we may have felt like we were blocked from it because we were releasing the old. After February of this year, the portal opened again, but there may have been a sense of confusion coming into the third week of March as we head into the March 24th eclipse with regard to, do I remain committed to this? Where am I going? I still feel like I have options. Do I do this or that? And through the eclipses on May 24th and April the 8th of this year, and when Mercury went direct by April the 25th of this year, by the time we were at April 27th, 28th, we came through that period understanding and knowing which direction we were going to move forward towards. Part of that direction is aspirational and may be directly linked to this kind of thread that has been pulling us forward since last year that we've had this stop and start relationship with. And part of how we're moving forward may well have to do with necessity, with the doors the eclipses have opened, but also the doors the eclipses have closed. Relationships, financial resources and avenues, and however it is that the universe is saying, this is the door you need to walk through. May of this year has an incredibly expansive, change-filled, remember this is the card for May, the death card, transformation, Again, transformation involves leaving behind the old and moving towards the new, partly due to stress and necessity, which means that we have to get into action to prevent certain challenging possible outcomes, and opportunity, which means we're also being led forward by things that are aspirational and exciting and maybe linked to what we were trying to get to last year, but couldn't. May has a sense of expansiveness. June, after that June the 6th new moon, it's going to be as if now that we have committed to a path, the nature of the action has a little bit more urgency and friction. It's like during the month of May into June the 6th, we're going to create a new world. It has an initiation feeling to it. And then June requires even more commitment, actions related to this committed path that now are just moving us. Things have to happen in a certain way. 3 conjunctions in the sign of Taurus. April the 20th, Jupiter-Uranus conjuncting. Last time happened in 2010, 2011. Over the next 12, 13 months, we're going to see the outcomes of this seismic shift. There's a video I did on this kind of seismic shift. Last week, a couple of important conjunctions. The Sun conjuncting Uranus, Venus conjuncting, the Sun conjuncting Uranus, the Sun conjuncting Jupiter and Venus conjuncting Uranus. This week, Venus conjuncts Jupiter. These are all portal energies. And there could be something as you head to this full moon that speaks of an event or visibility or opportunity or something that feels opportunity laden with this flavor of this direction that we're meant to move through. But remember, part of the moving forward has an element of stress and necessity to it, and part of it has a sense of opportunity to it. There could be two. It's almost a little bit like what you have to leave behind and what you have to move towards. But it's kind of a co-creative. It's not an altogether, we're not sailing forward without anxiety. There is change and necessity. I have to tackle this. I have to do this. More and more, this feels like the only way forward because these are the only opportunities and these are the realities that I have to contend with. And certain doors that I thought might open did not open. So this is the door. And for a lot of people, it's not without aspiration, even though it may have a certain amount of stress associated with it. And the stress may have to do with the fact that there are things that certainly need to be dealt with in a certain way only, based on what has come before. Here we are. But there's also that threat of opportunity. So with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, the ruler of this full moon and the dispositor of this full moon meeting up on the day of this full moon in Sagittarius, even though the sun moves into Gemini, has moved into Gemini, even though Venus will be moving into Gemini on the day of the full moon, even though Jupiter moves into Gemini a couple of days after the full moon, getting ready to trine Pluto on June the 2nd. There's a cresting of energies from that new moon in Taurus a couple of weeks ago. On May the 7th, it was? May the 7th. And that May the 7th new moon was absolutely in conversation with the full moon in Scorpio that preceded 2 weeks before that. And the moon, guess what, is in Scorpio now, relatively full, heading towards Sagittarius. So this is why some of that energy is active. Remember, the North Node eclipses, Mars conjuncted the North Node last week. Mars is getting ready to conjunct Chiron. The same Chiron that the new moon solar eclipse in Aries, which is the eclipse we are currently under, and it's especially accelerating till that June the 6th, till the middle of June of this year, in the sign of Aries, conjuncting Chiron. Mars conjuncts Chiron, I think it's next week. The sign of Aries is where this forward movement pull has been. May very well be related to eclipses that we were dealing with in the sign of Taurus since September 21 or thereabouts to October 23, and also the fact that, more importantly, Jupiter entered Taurus, creating a new 12-13-year cycle between May of last year to May 25th of this year. When we have the full moon in Sagittarius, that full moon is not only opposing the sun, which it has to do in order to be full, it is also opposing Venus and Jupiter. And Venus and Jupiter are still, at the time of the full moon, in Taurus. Venus is just about in Gemini. The fact that the sun and Venus are trining Pluto, again, has an expansiveness to it at this point in time. The planets, as they move through Gemini, trine Pluto in the beginning, but very soon, and this is what my next couple of videos will start to address at the end of this week, soon enough, the aspects are a little bit more stressful because they're going to square Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And squaring Saturn especially is never an entirely easy or pleasant process. But till the 6th of June, the energy in the air is trining Pluto, assisting transformation in the Aquarius and Capricorn part of the charts where Pluto is moving. Yes, the planets are moving into Gemini. They are trining Pluto. The trines towards Pluto are almost a kind of byproduct or a result of all the activity that we were doing that go back even to the squares to Pluto when the planets were entering the sign of Taurus about a month ago. The way to take advantage of those trines is simply to show up. Now, if there's certain actions and you know your chart and there's certain things you want to do in the Gemini part of your chart to assist Pluto's transformation right now in Aquarius, go for it. But I think the momentum of this week is such as that we're heading towards that full moon in the Sagittarius part of the chart. That is where it's going to be felt. And it is going to be a reaction to an event, exposure, spillage, activity, hyperactivity, sensitivity, maybe even for some people, extreme emotional full moony reactions to something. Try to pay attention to what is going on at the time of full moon emotionally, but it's an expansive, glorious full moon. I mean, I don't know what, encoding these trines to Pluto, but even though whatever is occurring through this full moon is going to require the new moon in Gemini 2 weeks from now and the month of June to kind of continue to execute and develop on it, there's still something very much in line with this kind of portal energy that we're currently dealing with in May that is related to the signs of Aries and Taurus. I will talk more about the trines to Pluto, particularly Jupiter trine Pluto. I have to address that. And I will at the end of this week. But I am less focused on, even though you might say, but Abhi, 2 planets are trining Pluto this week, the Sun and Venus. I know, but Venus is also conjuncting Jupiter on Wednesday. And the full moon is opposing. And the trines to Pluto are already underway. They are part of the same energy of an expansive, open pathway. The right way. The only way. It's going to feel like. And part of the only way is being created by the stress. When we are feeling restricted by something, and when we feel like we have an issue that is bubbling, when we feel like we have no choice but to address an issue, that is tremendous impetus for forward movement, no matter how stressful that circumstance might be. I'm in the middle of a breakup. I'm about to lose my job. I'm about to blah, blah. I have tried this and this hasn't come through and this hasn't come through and this, and now I've got to do this. That kind of universe pushing you. But as I said, part of the energy and what is pushing us forward is also aspirational and could go back thematically to those solar eclipses in Aries, Jupiter's transit in Taurus. And these Taurus transits have just been, it's not so much about, as I said, this luckiest day of the year BS. It's not going to feel like the luckiest day of the year. That's not what these conjunctions do. They are part of a narrative. You could have an idea. You could have an interview. You could have a meeting. You could have some vision of expansiveness. You could have something come through that requires you to show up. But the energy, and there could be a kind of a culmination aspect in certain respects. But if you want more on that luckiest day of the year stuff, take a look at my last video. Okay, it's a short and efficient video this week, but I really feel like I've said all I want to say. Actually, am I losing my mind? I mean, typically my videos last an hour. No, Sun in Gemini, Sun trines Pluto, supporting the transformation. Venus conjuncts Jupiter, Venus enters Gemini, full moon in Sag, Venus trines Pluto, Jupiter enters Gemini. Absolutely. A culmination for now. Remember, whatever is going on with this forward movement, remember what I've told you so far. May, June, July, forward movement. May, expansive initiation. June, more stressful execution. July, again, becomes a little bit easier. August, Mercury retrograde, take a step back. September, October, middle of November, forward movement. Middle of November to April of next year are similar, but more thorough, both birth canal, like we had between the middle of March of this year and the end of April. We have one more solar eclipse in Aries on March the 29th of 2025. So this expansiveness thread continues till the middle of next year. But we're in that place where we continue to push through. You are in the middle of a process, but the portal is open now in a way that it could not have been last year, astrologically. And some part of this change and moving through also means releasing things and preparing. It's a new, and especially in the light of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, that is a significant once every 12, 13-year conjunction. And this week is where, in 2024, a lot of it bubbles up. We're kind of pushed through in a certain sense. But the final pushing through, the process takes us into the middle of next year. Remember, October the 2nd, we start another solar eclipse of release in the Libra part of the chart. More on that to follow. I don't want to confuse you anymore. It's not about millions of dollars falling in our lap or us getting promoted kind of lucky week. If something like that happens to any one of you, that's great. It's much more about necessity and stress and opportunity pushing us through in a direction that we both desire and that we feel like we have no choice but to pursue because of certain restrictions that are placed on us right now. And remember, even though the manifestation of this full moon may not occur while the moon is actually in Sagittarius, it's a full moon in Sagittarius, it may occur in the next, it may occur while the moon is still in Scorpio, it'll still be related to the Sagittarius part of your chart. I'm going to leave it at this. If you would like me to take a look at your birth chart and do a reading for you, my email address is in the description box below. Email me there and I can give you information about rates, etc. There's a thanks button. If you want to use that to contribute to the channel, that'd be appreciated. It's not necessary, but it's there. Comment on this video. By all means, it drives circulation on YouTube. Tell your friends if you feel like this video is going to be useful for somebody. Please let them know about it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and next to the subscribe button is a bell. Hover over the bell. There's a wiggly bell on top. Click on that, and you'll be notified when I do new videos. All right, till later on this week. Have a great full moon. Take care.